Eh, Tadi saya diinstruksikan untuk mendahulukan dulu Pak Riantori. Pak Riantori malam ini akan membahas mengenai Salafism and International Relation in the Middle East. Yang mana hal tersebut merupakan point of view dari Indonesian point of view oleh Pak Dr. Riantori. Pak Dr. Riantori ini saya bacakan sedikit. Beliau merupakan Wareg 3 dari Universitas Profesor Dr. Mustopo, yang mana beliau juga merupakan anggota dari organisasi The Indonesian Society for Middle East Studies. National Political Studies and Middle East Studies Relation and receiving doctor degree from University of Pajajaran. Dr. Riantori memiliki numerous publication in the field of international relation, political studies, Islamic studies, and Middle East studies. Kepada Pak Dr. Riantori, saya persilakan, namun mengingat kita ada 3 panel malam hari ini, saya mohon kepada Pak Riantori dengan menyampaikan materi atau men-share materi yang akan diberikan kepada kami. Pak, saya berikan waktu 20 menit ya Pak ya, Pak Dokter. Ya, saya persilakan Pak Dr. Riantori, silakan Pak.
Terima kasih kepada Adinda Alamsyah, ya saya panggilnya Adinda, ini kayaknya masih muda nih. Terima kasih juga pada teman-teman semua, terutama kepada Syekh saya nih, Syekh Ismail Suhardi WK yang sangat produktif. And of course, Assalamualaikum, Profesor Dr. Yusuf Sain.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
What about if I use bahasa? Webinar is from Indonesia.
Okay, let me start my presentation and my speech.
I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go.
Izinkan saya share screen, Bapak-bapak, Ibu, dan saudara-saudara sekalian. Oke. Apakah sudah terlihat di layar? It's already on screen.
Yes.
Oke, saya kasih judul presentasi saya Salafism from the Middle East to Indonesia, but I'm so sorry, maybe I cannot elaborate sesuai dengan tadi arahan dari Adinda moderator ya, jadi poin-poin saja. Fokusnya saya mau bagi jadi 2, yaitu pertama membicarakan sedikit Salafism dari kawasan Timur Tengah. Nanti kemudian saya akan lebih banyak menyinggung tentang Salafism di Indonesia. Ini menurut saya ada hal yang menarik yang nanti kita bisa diskusikan lebih lanjut. Ya, di kawasan Timur Tengah ternyata itu yang kualitas tinggi itu mayoritas ya di sana. Jadi dari yang core, yang pusat itu, sampai kemudian masuk ke Arab Maghrib, sampai ke Libya, terus kemudian mulai mengalami penurunan tensi medium, dan kemudian sampai di ujung agak rendah gitu ya, terkait dari kualitas Salafisme itu sendiri. Nah, sekedar mengingatkan, mohon maaf buat kita semua ini, saya pikir nggak ada salahnya kalau kita coba ingat-ingat sedikit ya terkait dengan apa itu salaf ya. Dari kamus Lisanul Arab itu, salaf itu artinya sebenarnya kalau secara harfiahnya adalah orang-orang who were earlier. Jadi orang-orang pendahulu, dalam konteks ini adalah dalam Islam, baik dari konteks pengetahuan, iman, nilai-nilai moral dan kebaikan gitu, kindness. Nah, kalau dalam orang-orang awal pegangan tanpa kemudian mencoba mengait-kait kita orang-orang yang berpegangan dengan kuat, dengan sangat kuat terhadap Quran dan hadis sebagai source of Islamic. Saya pikir itu sekedar pengingat. Nah, untuk yang dalam konteks modern times-nya, ini kemudian bisa dikaitkan menjadi terorganisir lebih jauh ya. Kalau yang versi awalnya tadi salafisme itu adalah gaya hidup, kita pola pikir gitu ya. Tapi kalau kemudian yang dalam modern times ini, ketika kita bicara salafi ini bisa dikaitkan dengan lebih ke arah terorganisir gitu. Ada banyak sekali gerakan-gerakan salafiyah dari Timur Tengah yang kemudian bergerak ke seluruh dunia. Namun izinkan saya ya, let me remind all of us bahwa salafi itu bisa kita kategorikan menjadi dua kelompok besar, yaitu yang pure salafi which focus on the teaching of akidah and fikih, yang benar-benar bisa kita sederhanakan mengikuti salafus salih yang awal dulu, benar-benar berpegang teguh kepada akidah fikih gitu ya. Tapi juga ada yang kemudian disebut salafi apa yang disebut salafis. Kan saja kepada apa salafisme itu ya yang sekarang ini marak di dunia modern ini, salafis di dunia modern itu menarik, terutama di Indonesia. Tapi sedikit forgot the name.
Yusuf Sayin.
We call it older order, pakai istilah membungkam, tapi mengontrol supaya jadi mudah untuk dikelola, mudah untuk diarahkan gitu. Salah satunya zaman presiden kita di Orde Baru, almarhum presiden kita Soeharto, dengan segala kekurangan dan kelebihan beliau mencoba untuk suppress all form of Islamic activism, salah satunya dengan mencoba untuk menghindari pemakaian headscarf ya, supaya kemudian tidak menimbulkan ada isu-isu sara gitu. Waktu itu sangat kental ada istilah isu sara, A-nya salah satunya adalah terkait agama. Namun kemudian uniknya terjadi perubahan dinamika. Salah satunya sekarang ketika kita bicara di zaman reformasi ini semuanya serba terbuka, dan simbol-simbol keagamannya itu tidak hanya Islam sebenarnya. Simbol-simbol keagamaan semua itu bebas, boleh dipergunakan dan bahkan menjadi semacam kebanggaan. Nanti saya tunjukkan ada uniqueness ya. Ketika kita bicara salafisme kembali untuk memurnikan agama, terutama yang Muslim, itu yang tadinya dikhawatirkan simbol-simbol agama itu sekarang malah dianggap sebagai sesuatu hal yang keren. Ini menurut saya nyebutnya, saya boleh skip aja kali ya untuk yang brief story tadi. Nanti teman-teman kalau tertarik bisa saya share. I will share my PowerPoint if you like, but untuk menghemat waktu saya skip saja. Saya sekarang mau menuju ke uniqueness nih. Ketika dulu kita melihat bahwa simbol-simbol keagamaan itu ditekan, tapi sekarang anak-anak muda kita nih, zaman sekarang ini di Indonesia khususnya ya, ketika mau mencoba menunjukkan jati dirinya sebagai Muslim, mereka nggak malu-malu lagi. Bahkan mereka kemudian menganggap itu sebagai hal yang keren. Kenapa? Nah ini menarik, uniqueness-nya adalah ternyata teman-teman kita yang mencoba memurnikan agama ini, dia tahu media yang bisa digunakan untuk menyebarluaskannya, yaitu media semacam media sosial, media-media televisi, radio, dan sebagainya. Kita tahu ya, kita punya di Indonesia ini banyak sekali stasiun TV yang nuansa keagamannya kental, radio. Tapi ini salah satu hal ini Quran dan hadis itu tidak ada istilah modern, tapi itu ternyata kemudian juga digunakan oleh teman-teman kita ini untuk menyebarkan. Nah, ini menurut saya menarik nih di titik ini. Terus kemudian keunikan kedua adalah ketika dikaitkan dengan produk-produk kosmetik ya, untuk teman-teman kita yang muslimahnya itu ada nuansa-nuansa produk halal dan syariah, dan juga kemudian untuk teman-teman yang bergerak di pariwisata ya. Jadi ternyata ketika kita bicara salafism ini, itu kita jangan berbicara sesuatu hal yang kolot, ternyata kita bicara sesuatu hal yang genuine nih di zaman sekarang. Tetap mencoba untuk menjaga kemurnian, tapi kemudian membuka diri dengan menggunakan berbagai media, dengan berbagai kemodernan gitu. Menurut saya ini sangat-sangat menarik. Ini saya berterima kasih kepada Syekh saya Ismail ini mengangkat topik ini, bicara sesuatu yang kelihatannya kolot, tapi kemudian ternyata ada banyak sisi menarik. Makanya saya menyebutnya di sini uniqueness-nya. Nah, salah satunya sekarang kita juga bisa lihat betapa dulu ya kita punya di Indonesia ini, I'm sorry Prof. Sain, di Indonesia we have a famous Ustadz Zainuddin MZ, the late almarhum. Jadi beliau itu berbicara di panggung itu yang nonton itu jutaan. Beliau dianugerahi sebagai kiai sejuta umat waktu itu gelarnya. Tapi sekarang Ustadz zaman sekarang itu dia menggunakan bukan panggung lagi tapi Instagram. Jadi Ustadz Instagram gitu, Ustadz IG gitu. Itu malah kemudian nilai value-nya jauh dibanding dengan yang di panggung-panggung di kampung-kampung itu sekarang. Nah, ini menurut saya, tapi yang diajarkan adalah tentang kemurnian Islam, kemurnian agama itu, tentang salafisme. Nah, saya juga mau mengangkat nanti buat bahan diskusi, ternyata salafisme ini, gerakan-gerakan pemurnian agama ini ada perdebatannya. Di satu sisi bilang bahwa dengan kita menggunakan simbol seperti itu, berarti ide dasar dari salafisme itu udah gugur. Itu pendapat pertama gitu. Itu berarti mereka sudah tidak murni lagi, sudah tidak asli lagi. Tapi di satu sisi malah ada yang berpendapat, ya, the opposite view sees the same phenomenon as the triumph of Islamization or Salafism in conquering Islam or secular industry. Itu malah menunjukkan berarti bahwa nilai-nilai Islam itu bisa menundukkan industri-industri sekuler. Nah, ini saya serahkan kepada teman-teman, apakah memang perkembangan salafisme di Indonesia dan juga di dunia ya, dan juga di Timur Tengah saat ini itu lebih ke arah bahwa nilainya itu mengalami degradasi, atau malah nilai salafisme sekarang ini malah mengungguli nilai-nilai yang lain, salah satunya nilai sekularisme. Nah, terakhir saya tutup dengan challenge nih. The phenomenon of hijrah into Salafism, which is dominated by the younger generation of Muslim nowadays, as a manifestation of post-Islamism, which can be a social phenomenon that has the potential to shape bigger change. Jadi ada potensi ini, kita sekarang menuju kepada zaman yang manusia di dunia ini lebih religius gitu. Nah, will it really be able to become bigger? It depends on many other factors. Ini ada yang bocor itu. Mohon maaf, itu ada suara.
Silahkan dilanjutkan, Bapak.
Oke. Nah, it depends on many other factors, tapi ada juga faktor-faktor yang seperti kita mengkaji ilmu sosial yang lainnya. Perkembangan itu selalu ada dinamikanya. Nah, I'm so sorry, dengan segala hormat, salah satu fenomena tantangan di Indonesia buat mereka yang berupaya memurnikan adalah kita acknowledge ya saat ini with the term of Islam Nusantara. Di Indonesia ini kita sekarang dikenalkan ada term, ada istilah Islam Nusantara, which mean Islam with the nuance, dengan nuansa-nuansa cultures, Indonesian cultures. Yang tentu saja ini kita bisa lihat sebagai antitesis dari apa yang dicoba diangkat oleh salafisme. Nah intinya, walau alam ya, intinya bahwa kajian tentang salafisme ini di satu sisi adalah sebuah hal yang menarik, kajian tentang post-Islamism. Saya dari latar belakang ilmu sosial, hubungan internasional, tentu saja kita ketika bicara sosial nggak mungkin berbicara sesuatu hal ya itu aja gitu Pak. Bangun komunitas masyarakat baik. Hati-hati pembicaraan tentang agama gitu ya, itu bisa sangat sensitif ketika kita tidak bisa membuka diri kita dengan baik, yang ada kemudian kita menjadi terkotak-kotak, itu yang kita harus hindarkan. Saya pikir itu saja sebagai pengantar. Terima kasih banyak atas kesempatannya. Thank you very much. Saya kembalikan kepada Adinda moderator.
Terima kasih Bapak Dr. Yanturi atas materi yang diberikan. It is very interesting. You highlight the uniqueness of Salafism, the challenges, and the substantial explanation about the Salafism. Next, as usual, I will allow the second speaker to share with us regarding the Salafism in the perspective of interdisciplinary. Our speaker will be Associate Professor Dr. Yusuf Saying. May I please introduce him first? He is currently receiving academic duty on Necmettin Erbakan University in the Faculty of Political Science. Graduated on his doctoral degree. He is expert in social science I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, Prof. Due to the connection, maybe my voice is cracked, but I will give the stage to you. Please share with us your perspective and take on the Salafism in your perspective. I will only state one thing, that due to the potential of insufficient time, I will allow 20 minutes for you to deliver your presentation material. Thank you so much, Prof. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Agit. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, thank you very much for Professor Ismail Suardi Vekke, and thank you for listening to Professor Yantori and my students or friends. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah from Turkey to Indonesia. Where is our brothers and sisters? Thank you very much. Today, inshallah, I will talk to you about Salafism in a perspective of interdisciplinary. An interdisciplinary perspective, I will try to look at the subject. First of all, this Salafism subject is very difficult, very complex matter, but inshallah I will summarize in terms of some perspectives. Firstly, the word Salaf is an Arabic word, as you know, meaning those who come first. As a term, it refers to the period of companions, tabi'un and tabi'i tabi'un. I mean the first generations of Islam. The use of the concept as Salafi Salihin was conceptualized later. Ahmed bin Hanbal radiallahu anh, is one of those who placed the concept of predecessor at the center of his discourse and used to it distinguish himself from other interpretations of Islam. Important traditionalists names such as Ishaq bin Rahawayh, Ali bin al-Medini, and Yahya bin Ma'in also helped to separate this concept. It is also known that Ahmed bin Hanbal became a hero after suffering the Mihne process. In the course of history, while the Mu'tazila was in decline, the Ahl Hadith came to the fore as a political power and gained a decisive position on the understanding of religion. This was not just a theological process, my friends. Rather, it was a multifaceted experience with a political and cultural background. In some studies, it has been revealed that Ahmed bin Hanbal was a figure who defended Arab sovereignty and supported the cult of Muawiyah. From a theological point of view, Salafism coincides with the Ahl Hadith movement. The Ahl Hadith or Ahl Asar movement advocates religious essentialism and the literal meaning of the text, not reason, interpretation, and different approaches in understanding religious texts. While doing this, it is based on the narrations from previous generations. When it comes to the religion, transmission is essential, not reason. It is better to follow the old than to innovative. Al-ittiba hayrun min al-ibtida in Arabic. The opposition between reason and interpretation that characterize the Salafi method coincide with this method of the Ahl Hadith. In fact, the references made by the Salafis to the Salaf are mostly baseless and forced. Here, there is a backward, ideological and dogmatic reading, or rather a construction. In the understanding of religious texts, the narrator, literal tendency and rational and interpretive tendency show themselves in the early periods of Islam. However, my friend, with the influence of the Quran al-Karim, the rational and interpretive vein became decisive. Basic the subject as Ahlul Dirayah, I mean advocates of reason, and Ahlul Riwayah, Ahl al-Riwayah, proponents of narration. One author, his name is Atay, gives a list of prominent ones among the generations that qualify as predecessor and states that most of them do not fit the definition of Salafi. On the contrary, they value reason, contemplation, theology, and philosophy. The picture presented by Mr. Atay shows that the Islamic tradition progressed in a rational and exploratory direction in the early stages. In Islamic tradition, the rivalry between Ahl Hadith and Ahl Ray has generally resulted in the favor of the former, with the consensus of conservative sections and governments. The political and social crisis in Islamic world have also strengthened the hand of the sharp and marginalizing segments represented by Ahl Hadith and Salafism. The impact of crisis on the spread of Salafism to the environment by surpassing its own ecology and suppressing other religious understanding is undeniable. For this reason, I can discuss Salafism. We can discuss Salafism as a crisis theology is one of my speech with Professor Evkuran. I'm sorry, Professor Evkuran couldn't participate in this program because of his intense work. I want to give his salam to you. My friends, also, there are some studies that base the revival of Salafism on the Afghani Abduh line in the modern world. These studies make a connection by looking specifically at the self-reflexive and tradition-critical tendencies. However, although the Afghani Abduh movement emphasized the age of bliss and the return to the predecessor generation, it has modernist features. And in this respect, it differs from classical Hanbali and modern Wahhabi Salafism. In this direction, my friends, Salafism has become the most popular topic, not only in modern Islamic thought, but also in international politics. Today, Salafism is called Neo-Salafism in order to emphasize the difference between its meaning and equivalent in the medieval Islamic world and the form and content it takes today. In some studies, a distinction is made between traditional and radical Salafism. There is a remarkable situation arising from the theopolitical divergence between these two. Today's radical Salafists accuse traditional Salafists of not being Salafist and state that they direct all their energies to fight against certain types of polytheism, and that they do not deal with important social problems, and state that they direct all their energies to the fight against certain types of polytheism, and they do not deal with important social problems, according to Çakmaktaş. In general, the characterization of Neo-Salafism stems from the idea that there is a difference between Salafism in the classical period and Salafism that emerged in the modern state. However, this approach does not prevent some founding thinkers or representatives, especially Ahmed bin Hanbal and Ibn Taymiyyah, from coming to the fore when the subject of Salafism is discussed. While discussing the current problems and crises of Islamic world, we suddenly find ourselves in the historical and structural problems of classical Islamic thought. Therefore, my students and friends, talking about the present requires examining the past, and today's Muslim mind is vividly experiencing the patterns of understanding constructed in the past. Survival, on the other hand, constantly repeats its own history as a result. My friends, today, Salafism is considered institutionally as a lobbying activity supported by Saudi Arabia and some Gulf kingdoms. Neo-Salafism is a product of the political and theological alliance that took place in Saudi Arabia, as you know. Again, as you know, the political aspect of the paradigm was undertaken by the Saud family, while the theological aspect was undertaken by the Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab family. This alliance established a closed regime with the help of wealth and started to work as a laboratory where these were applied. Salafism does not consider itself as a sect or madhab. When asked which path they followed, they answer that they follow the footsteps of their predecessor. The concept of madhab al-salaf or mazhab or salaf al-salaf means the way of predecessor, the way of predecessor, and it is historical and theological legitimation. This concept reveals their views on the phenomenon of sectarianization and sect within the scope. Among the main problem areas, areas of the Salafi studies, the increasing sectarian conflicts and the rapid polarization of the Islamic world reveal the importance of approaching the problem of Salafism with a more comprehensive view. Maybe we can ask some questions, address in my speech about Salafism. For example, how does Salafism explain itself? How does it look at other religious sects? Secondly, what is the background of Salafi return to self-discourse? Thirdly, what is the relationship between Salafism and Sunnism? And what are the characteristics of the political theological ground that feed Salafism today? Maybe our students and my friends can try to gain these questions, answers in their mind. Dealing with the very basic issues and discussions in the subject area of international relations discipline today by ignoring sects and religious thoughts may cause some problems in examining the issues in depth and obtaining good results. At this point, my students, according to an example in this study, international relations of IR, may lead to this respect, my brothers, an interdisciplinary approach to Islamic sects or mazhab, or the history of thought seems extremely essential, as is the case with Salafism. At the same time, Salafism, which is the subject of international relations and international politics, is basically discussed, can be discussed in terms of Islamic science, according to us, and it is based on the problematic of how it should be understood as a thinking, systematic and practice way. Have I time, Mr. Agit? My friends and our dear students, firstly, defining an identity in the social sciences and politics is a frequent problem. The liberal approach envisages accepting the information given by each individual and social group about their own identity is correct. However, there are some problems. There are some problems here. First of all, the arbitrariness of choosing one's own identity and making any definition of one's identity is intermingled. When an individual chooses an identity, it is scientific problem, if not political freedom, to give it the meaning she or he wish. Interpretations and definitions that are incompatible with the historical and intellectual realities of identity are the subject of critical analysis. In this respect, my friend, identification of any kind is a scientific and intellectual task, independent of the information given by the actors carrying the identity. Working on identity is a scientific and academic activity. For this reason, the problem of identification is in Turkey regarding other identities, as in the problems of Kurdish and Alevi identity, is valid for those who adopt Salafism. Salafism is a political theology generations of Muslims. Salafism emerged after the presented religious essentialism and minimalism in the face of diversity and competition of theological, philosophical, and Sufi interpretations. Salafism undertook the role of defending the return to the essence and purity against social change, and while emphasizing adherence to the literal meanings of religious texts, Salafism rejected interpretation attempts. It saw the values produced by Muslim societies of enriching religious life as innovations that corrupt Islam, and insisted on an anti-cultural line. This is a crisis. The crisis experience in history fed the desire to return to the roots and essence, and led to the stretching of Salafism. The inability to resolve the political and social crisis in the Islamic world in modern times has stretched into interest in Salafism. In particular, problems such as occupations, inequality, inadequate education, and political instability caused Salafism to evolve from an intellectual movement to jihadism. Today, Salafism stands out with its takfiri feature and a completely different appearance from the modernist line led by Afghani Abdu. As a conclusion, it is a fact that Salafism also affects the relations between sects or madhab. Throughout the history, Salafism has seen it as the only legitimate force representing Islam against Shiism. This is arising a rivalry between today Saudi Arabia and Iran, as you know. It is seen that when Salafism strengthens, the balance between sect and sect deteriorates and tensions rise in Islamic world, unfortunately. On the other hand, Salafism also negatively affects the balance within Sunnism, because the view of theological schools that characterize Sunnism, especially Maturidism, on the relationship between faith and action is rejected definitively. Salafism is also extremely radical about Sufism and considers it un-Islamic or out of Islam. And although the historical and social conditions highlight Salafism today, the problems faced by Muslim societies in the global world clearly reveal the inadequacy of self-reflexive approach. Problems such as climate change, artificial intelligence, women's rights, freedoms, pluralism, political and economic imbalances increase the need for an intellectual and libertarian interpretation of Islam today. Again, thank you very much for your listening and your having time, and thank you again for you give this opportunity to me. Thank you very much, my friends and my students and professor.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Yusuf Sayyim, for the magnificent perspective on Salafism. You were explaining about the history and then the madhab, and then to the modern, connecting it to the modern problems in nowadays societies. Okay, let me proceed to the next section, which unfortunately the third presenter tonight, Mr. Professor Dr. Mehmet F. Quran cannot be insufficient.
Okay, Mr. Agit, we have prepared our presentation together, but unfortunately, Professor Mehmet F. Quran couldn't have time to participate. He gives salams to you and successful, inshallah, conferences. Also, if you allow me, I can share the Professor F. Quran's video. Professor has sent a video to you if I have an opportunity.
I'm sorry. Your connection.
Mr. Agit, Professor Mehmet.
Hello, I'm Mehmet Quran, professor at Ankara Social Science University, Faculty of Theology, Department of Theology. I am participating in your program from Turkey.
Mr. Agit, can I share the video?
Славянский с нашими яйцами.
Yeah. We are listening, Hocham. So go ahead.
Okay. Please give me 1 second, okay?
Hello, what is the Radic 6?
Okay, just 1 minute. I will share the video.
Kasam mag-share mo taga Dr. Yusuf.
Tim Zoom tolong diatur dengan baik. Itu yang mic-nya bocor. Ya. Kalau 2 sampai 3 kali sudah dimohonkan untuk mute belum bagus, langsung di unmute saja.
Tunggu Profin, sementara saya coba, ada ini yang coba masuk.
1 minute, okay, I am sharing video.
Sorry.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes. Okay.
Hello, I'm Mehmet Quran, professor at Ankara Social Science University, Faculty of Theology, Department of Theology. I am participating in your program from Turkey. I would like to share my views on Salafism in short titles. By the way, I would like to mention that I wrote an article on Salafism with my friend Yusuf Sayyim. I would like to thank him for his contribution. Social and political developments in the Middle East also affect the academic agenda. One of the prominent examples of this is the issue of Salafism. In our country, this subject is actually one of the answered fields of study of the disciplines of Islamic theology, it means Kalam, and history of Islamic sects in the faculties of theology. However, social developments are triggered interest in Salafism in the Muslim world. The following attitudes are prominent in Salafism studies. Salafism is not a sect, but a form of mentality. It presents a literal approach towards Nas, Islamic sacred texts. It means Quran and Sunnah, history and facts. Due to its harsh stance of the relationship between faith and deeds, were
Merci, merci,
laid
merci,
by
merci.
the Salaf. In some studies, Salafism is characterized as a carrier and religious representation of Arab culture. At the root of its opposition of philosophy, theology, and Sufism is an exclusionary attitude towards the culture of non-Arab, it means Mawali. The discourse of returning to the essence or Salaf aims at the elimination of religious elements that are characterized as bidah and are the product
How are
of
you?
the
I am
Mawali.
also fine. You are fine.
Salafism is divided
Now we
into
start.
historical
Now is
periods. These are first, the ancient Salafism advocated by Ahmad bin Hanbal, and second, Ibn Taymiyyah's theoretically enriched intellectual Salafism. 3. Salafism updated by Wahhabism in the modern era. 4. Salafism, which is emphasized in the works and discourse of Islamic modernists with the idea of return to the essence. 5. Salafism, the ideology of violent groups. There are two approaches to the relationships between Salafism and Sunnism. 1. Salafism is a disease of Sunnism that cannot renew itself, and it cannot be separated from Sunnism. In fact, it is a continuation of Ahl al-Hadith, the first form of Sunnism. In my opinion, Salafism is Ahl al-Sunnah Kharijism. Second, Salafism is incompatible with Anatolian Sunnism. It should be considered outside of Sunnism. This is a view defended by circles based on the Hanafi Maturidi school. This approach doesn't coincide with historical and theological facts, because Sunnism, with its pluralistic and inclusive intersectarian structure, also includes Salafism. Salafism ignores the historical accumulation of Muslims. It is not only against our religious heritage, but also against our civilizational elements. In this respect, it represents religious and cultural nihilism. Salafism exacerbates sectarian tensions among Muslims due to its exclusionary attitude towards Islamic sects. Salafism threatens social peace by turning Muslims into angry mobs. Salafism is a problem that must be solved in the process of rebuilding Islamic civilization. Unless Salafist acrimony is tempered, it will not be possible to bring vitality and progress to religious thought. Finally, in my opinion, Salafism is a historical and theological fact of Islam. To read it solely in terms of religious radicalism and terrorism would be another attempt at demonization. It will continue to live in its own ecology in certain parts of the Islamic world. Its transformation into a cultural movement free of violence and assuming the role of critical religious thought will be positive for the pluralism of Islam. Thank you.
Okay, this was Professor Mehmet Evguran's presentation. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Yusuf Sayin. Due to the disturbance earlier, I have to ask the administrator, do you want to change the room or do we proceed with this Zoom? Hello?
Mr. Agit,
Lanjut aja, lanjut. Kita berlindung pada Allah. Mudah-mudahan Allah melindungi kita.
Okay, we have here the three presenters with its perspective on Salafism. I see we also have discussion tonight, which is Mr. Ismail Swardiwaka, PhD. He is a lecturer of Graduate School of Yayan Surong and rector of Setia Abdul Haris Makassar. Also Arif Isdiman Saleh, which is PhD candidate from Necmettin Erbakan University Turkey, and JJ Ramadan is a PhD candidate from Bursa Uludag University Turkey. First, I would like to invite our discussion to have its respond to what our presenters has been delivered to us tonight on their presentation material. Please.
Thank you very much to Pak Alamsah already moderate us since in the early beginning of our panel. And I would like to thank to three panels of us, Hocham, Professor Dr. Yusuf Sayin, and we have Hocham, Professor Dr. Mehmet, the one from Ankara and the other one from Konya, both of in Turkey. And we already start with Dr. Rianturi, the Executive Director of ISMES, Indonesian Society of Middle East. After my discussant delivery, we will have the opportunity to listen to PhD candidate Arif Isdiman Saleh. He is a PhD student from Necmettin Erbakan University, and Jelang Ramadan from Bursa Uludag University. We are honored tonight that we listen how the perspective of Salafism, and then somehow the Salafism is not coming only to certain area, but it is shows that there is a global Salafism. In some words, Salafus Saleh or any other terms that actually it is involvement of the socio-cultural of the society. In fact, we cannot rely only to the term of Salafism in Middle East or in Arabic area, but somehow the alumni or the one that learn Islam from the source of Salafism or Salafus Saleh, they try to enhance this belief to come and rise in any program. It is in actually, this is interdisciplinary of the topic, not only from the side of Islamic studies, but the same times that we will have it from international relations, sociology. In the same times, we will have another opportunity to come from educations or any side. our honor panel and our discussants for the summer school. Actually, one more thing that somehow, for example, the international department, it comes on the terms the global, but in the same time, Southeast South Africa countries, not only about regionalism, but it is the certain area. Fortunately, the BRICS gained 60 countries for interesting to apply as the member of BRICS. That's why not only about the discussion of the belief or faith, but somehow we can see there is a connections or there is frontiers or there is to the economies. So things that it might be, we can explanation from our panel, from Yusuf Sayin Hocham, from Mehmet Hocham, and then from Dr. Riantori, how could the Salafism is growing, to the other area, not only Arabic and Middle East area, but somehow here in Southeast Asia, we can find a certain area or certain institutions that would come up with the Salafism. Thank you very much, every one of us joining our summer school tonight for Indonesian times. It is still in the afternoon of the day in Konya or somewhere else in Istanbul and in Turkey. But I would like to thanks to everyone make this summer school happen, and everyone can join to our meeting tonight. And then I would like to hand over the mic to the moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ismail Suardiwaka, PhD. Next, Mr. JJ Ramadan, if you please, would you give your response on the three material that have been delivered to us before I move on to the question and answer session. Thank you. Please, Mr. JJ Ramadan. Hello, Mr. JJ Ramadan, please. Would you be so kind to share your perspective on this?
Forgive me, Mas Ajit. Several seconds, just a minute ago, Mas JJ had informed to me that he has a phone call, so that I would like to respond to the discussion at first. Then, after I express the expression, I will head over to Mas Jelang. Regarding to thank you everyone for giving me a chance to discuss the topic about the Salafism, especially for Associate Professor Ismail Weke and Associate Professor Yusuf Sayin, who had invited me to join this program, because actually my dissertation program is also related to this topic, as my current theme of dissertation is about Indonesia Muhammadiyah movement and its public diplomacy activities in 3 countries. But if we're talking about Muhammadiyah, maybe some people in Indonesia, especially the one who have preference of traditional one, would refer it as a Wahhabi. As Muhammadiyah adopted several things from Wahhabi, like the prohibition of polytheism and several kind of un-Islamic or Islamic rights, and also the principle of amar ma'ruf nahi munkar, or promoting the benevolent and prohibiting the vice. However, as I had read some books and another literature, the difference between Muhammadiyah and Wahhabi is clear, because Wahhabi somewhat in the approach are rather violent or rather traditional, whilst Muhammadiyah, as Professor Sayin had said, as Professor had said before, or as maybe we have now, or someone or anything of every one of you who had studied Muhammadiyah about Muhammadiyah now, the founder of Muhammadiyah has more inspired by Muhammad Abduh and Jamaluddin al-Afghani, who emphasized the importance of science. Even Muhammad Abduh has a more soft approach, whilst in the terms of technology and science adoption from the West, it give a huge he had give the huge opportunity in order to reform the situation of Islam, the situation of Islam, whilst the Salafi or Salafism or Wahhabism movement sometimes the everything that comes from West are regarded as a kind of infidelity or maybe bidat in Islamic terms. However, as Salafism have more institutionalized and integrated to several governments, what we had said in Saudi Arabia or etc., it had become a mainstream. It had become a mainstream movement. Even if we went to several Western states or even Southeast Asia's state, we can see that several Islamic education institutions who get a fund from Saudi Arabia are much more have preference to Wahhabi schools and of Wahhabis to the Salafis and Wahhabis, and the preference of teaching of Salafism, the teaching of Salafism, somewhat are considered very harsh, which is very contraband with the principle of Islam, the principle of wasatiyah, or the principle of wasatiyah, and the principle of we can say a good, we can say the good and tolerant preaching. However, regarding to the violent nature of Salafism, it could be traced back to the period of Abbasiyah, in which one of the fourth Imam, Imam Hanbali, and its students use much more coercive approach to proselytize Islam. Even someone in Indonesia may heard that Salafism is easily to judge, easily maybe to doing some preaching with violence. In the term of history, even their predecessor had performed it. I had the example that I got from the book which I read about the Salafism. They have a group of Berbehari, which emphasize the Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar concept, And actually, at the first time, they tend to not use the coercive way or use the instead of words and some benevolent activities. However, at a certain point, they have a center point. Somewhat, the movement are very concerning that they have eagerness even to go through some to go to maybe we can say the entertainment place, then even sweeping all what is within the entertainment place, and even destroying what is behind. If we had saw this pattern, maybe in several areas with the higher concentration of Salafism, maybe so that's kind of violent. At first, maybe everyone who contravene their believer would be harshly criticized. If they have a force, or maybe a power, they will press it very hardly and even brutally. So no wonder that the movement of Salafism, even in Islamic countries, nowadays are much more concerned and even however the Salafism itself has two main it's not a united maybe we can say it's not a united movement, given that after the Gulf War, due to the different view between the government of Saudi and another ulama who show its maybe we can say is contravened through the presence of US allied soldiers in Saudis. So some of them some of them form a group, maybe we can say the jihadists, and another one is Saudism, which is more pragmatic. And as I had read before, I attended the discussion. Although there are so many differences between the Suidism and jihadism branch, their main point is always the same. And if we applied it to applied it to Indonesian context or Turkish context, it's not suitable because Islam in Indonesia and Turkey mostly more plural than the Saudi. So it could be concluded Salafism and the Salafism and its derivative movement, as it had delivered by Professor Dr. Ismail Yusuf Sain and Professor Dr. Ibrahim Efkur in Ankara, is a trait of Islam unity, and even the Islam itself, because the Salafis, we can say, had embraced Islam and make a negative note with the Islam peaceful character by using the method of horse and even horse and rattles method in their presentation. Maybe this is my last maybe this is my last statement. Thank you for the occasion and forgive me for my bad English to explain, as my source of book is Turkish. I will hand over to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Istiman Saleh, for the response on these matters. Next, maybe last but not least, Mr. Jalan Ramadan, would you please give us your take on this Salafism interdisciplinary perspective, please?
Okay, thank you, Pak Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude firstly to Professor Ismail Weke, who invited me to this distinguished event, and also I would like to express my salam to Sayan Hojam, Yusuf Sayan, W. Mehmet El Quran, Indonesia, dan salam Saleh Jalar. So I would like to again, for others, also for all the participants, I'm so thankful and so glad we can see each other in this Zoom. So let me give you a very brief and also short discussion things about this discourse in regard to the Salafism and international relations in the Middle East from the Indonesian perspective. As we know that we have two major Islamic NGOs in Indonesia, which first is Muhammadiyah, which established in 1912, and the other one is Nahdlatul Ulama in 1926. Those two are deemed as the bastion of the Islamic moderation in Indonesia and also in the world. So if we refer to many books in Turkey, Muhammadiyah usually perceived as one of the Wahhabism, which is actually wrong. And I can tell you that Muhammadiyah is also one of the organization that can or use the approach of Salafism, but we can also how can I say, assume that Muhammadiyah is one of the neo-Salafism that really not attached to one certain jihadi Salafism or Wahhabi Salafism, which is what Saudi Arabian popularized. So in regard to the international relation, we know that the Islam war is one of the attempt to penetrate the ideology of each other countries in exercising the soft power. So if we regard our theoretical framework to the Kissinger, the soft power is actually used after the World War to extend the diplomacy and to exercise the soft power to influence the people, especially in our terms, it's the Muslim world. And we also know that there's sectarianization happened in the Middle East. So thank God in Indonesia there was no such thing like sectarianization, but we kind of feel the chill of the, how can I say, political identity this last decades due to polarization in us. But again, Indonesian society especially can maintain the stability between polars which arise in the term of the political contestation. But we perceive about the Salafism that rising in the Middle East as one of the political momentum for certain groups or societies in Indonesia. Besides those two major groups, well, that previously I said, Muhammadiyah and also Nahdlatul Ulama. So we are right now having a lot of graduates from Saudi Arabia that promulgate the approach of Salafism in perceiving the way of life, the Islamic thought, but they cannot deem as one of the madhab or school of thought. So in terms of fiqh, so the Salafism as our Hoja Yusuf Sayan already explained that is and also Pak Dr. Riantori from ISMES explained that Salaf is referred to the those who came early. So the analogy or not the analogy, the idea of return to Al-Quran and Sunnah is always pronounced, it's always, how can I say, it's always uttered by majority Islamic NGOs in Indonesia, especially from the Muhammadiyah side, but they are not really Salafism that we receive Eastern perspective. So let me argue that in our term, Salafism, especially for Indonesian and for some societies in Indonesia, is well, we can say the political momentum to gain consolidation between the Ummah itself, because what Salafism what is not to in simple way I can say that Salafism encourage to the followers to just follow what countries or government told them to do. So it is for some societies in Indonesia feel more simple to be practiced in terms of political life. So good country is banned and way over the Islamic teaching was actually also promulgated by the jihadi Salafis, and many also can say that the Islamic NGOs in Indonesia that we deem as the radicalized organizations use this approach to gain the mass. That's why I can refer to my thesis that the Salafism in Indonesian perspective is political momentum and also idea to gain consolidation between inner the Ummah itself. So the last thing before I conclude my discussion, I would like to promote two of the books. One of the book is coming from my, I don't think we can see it in the Zoom. So from one of my professor, Professor Tayyar Arif, is one of the experts of international relations in Turkey. They also wrote a lot of things about in the Middle East. So in his book about the Middle East, he explained the condition of the Middle East that also influence other regions. And also I would like to promote on the book from my professor, is Nader Hashimi and also Daniel Postel, which entitled Sectarianizations, that he assumed that sectarianizations in Middle East fail to explain the current condition and in Middle East, because there are a lot of other variables that making the disorder of Middle East came into motion. So the claim of the sectarianism fails to explain the current disorder in the Middle East. That's it for my discussions. I would like to give it to the moderator again. Thank you, Pak Alamsyah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jalan Ramadan. After all of this discussion session, I invited, we finally can open the question and answer. Is there anyone who want to ask directly? Please raise your hand. But please let me explain and simplify the response speaker tonight, which is when we're talking about the Salafism issues, it often leads us to radicalism and one's perspective about religions, theology, and any kind of in that field, which can lead to a different perspective. Well, it's a challenge to unite this perspective, which we'll discuss we will discuss tonight. I have already few questions from the chat box, but I see Mr. Ahmad Sulfikar has raised hands for question. Therefore, I permit Mr. Ahmad Sulfikar, please give us your question, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First, before I ask my question, let me deliver the question from the chat box to help you to give the question to the speakers. First, from Dr. Gigi, Arab Saudi now is more open in the style and acculturate the West values. How can it read as the change from the thought and the application of Salafi? And the next question also from Dr. Gigi, from the last update, there's about the atheism. It's become higher in the Arabic countries. How the Salafi values face the contemporary global challenges. And also the question from Al-Wafirido to Dr. Riantori and Prof. Yusuf. As we know, Salafism advocate for a return to what they perceive as the pure and authentic form of Islam, rejecting innovations and interpretation that have developed over time. Salafi often prioritize the establishment of an Islamic state governed by Sharia law and might have varying degrees of political involvement. Do you think this Salafi is still compatible and able to compete with other ideologies in this era? And how can Salafis become important players in geopolitics? And also my question to both of the speakers, I want to ask you questions. How about your views on the identity politics? As you know, Islam in Indonesia seen as the identity to move the people to choose in the elections, maybe in local elections and in our national elections. How you see from, especially for Dr. Riantori, the identity politics and also the views of Islam becoming commodity in politics? Thank you so much.
Okay.
Some questions to our friends, but as far as I know, one question to me. Inshallah, I will share to my opinions with you about this question. And also, I have a little time to participate in this program. If you allow me, inshallah, I can give my answer. And I want to leave from the summer school. Yes, you are right. Salafism today advocate a return to they perceive as a pure and authentic form of Islam. Also, they reject innovations and interpretations, some modern, especially modern interpretations, and this has developed over time. You're right, Salafi prioritize the establishment of an Islamic state, as we see in Syria and Iraq. And this movement wants to establish or govern by Sharia law, a spatial and political activism. And also, they try to vary degrees of political movements. Yes, you're right. Salafi is still compatible, and I think they can compete with other ideologies in the Middle East and Southeast and also Far East. And I think this power of Salafism is emerging from its economic and political power, political strength. In Salafist world, for example, Saudi Arabia and Gulf states like United Emirates and Qatar, Dubai, and etc. All of them, firstly, are economically powerful countries. Secondly, politically powerful countries and geopolitically powerful countries, and these states and countries are as if exporting Salafism and Salafist movements not only in the Middle East but also throughout the world, from Asia to Balkan states. For example, today in Sarajevo or Macedonia, we can witness Salafist movements. For example, in Germany, there are lots of Salafist mosques, Salafist masjid, and etc., and other cultural establishments in Germany and all Europe. This is originated from firstly economic power, secondly diplomatic and political power, and also I can point one issue also. In the world for a long time, there is an empty or gap of ideology. For decades, for years, human beings are affecting from secular or laicist ideology. And Islamic world is receiving threats from secular and laicist perspectives, movements, and word of thought. And Islamic word or Islamic thought can be inadequate to answer these problems, these mental problems. In this point, Salafist perspectives and minds can develop powerful answers with its powerful opportunities. Let's think like this. There is a big Islamic world, and most of them have weak states, weak ideologies, weak political movements, and there is another world, powerful ideology, powerful resources, powerful strength. I think, in my opinion, because of balance of can not be compete and it's compatible. This is my answer, my brother. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Ratu Hussain. Next, Dr. Riantori, would you please have all the questions that were delivered to you? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adinda, moderator. I would like to answer the question about the atheism in English. And then for the question about Arab Saudi and the rest, I think it's better for me to answer in Bahasa. First, I would like to give my opinion about atheism. I think the information about atheism in the Middle East is some kind of a news, fake news or in bahasa Indonesia data yang dilebih-lebihkan gitu ya. Memang ada mungkin satu dua, tapi faktanya saya I will give the case about the Qatar World Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, if you still remember about Qatar World Cup, the players from Europe teams, when they came to the Qatar, first of all, they worry about the countries because they heard in the news, I quote, they heard that Qatar, just like the Middle East countries, is a very, very harm terrorist or something like that. But after they played in the Qatar World Cup, what we see about them, they happy, and Lionel Messi, you know, they have the gift from Jubah, bahasa Indonesia Jubah from the Qatar Emir. So I don't believe that atheism in the Middle East will grow and grow and grow. And it's just some kind of offer thought and news yang dilebih-lebihkan gitu. I think that's my opinion about the question of about the question of atheism. And the second question for me about Arab Saudi. Nah, menurut saya ini menarik ya. Saya izin pakai bahasa Indonesia aja. Teman-teman, ibu bapak pernah mendengar ya mengenai visi Saudi 2030 ya, bahwa dia akan mengubah karakternya, branding dia sebagai sebuah negara Timur Tengah yang selama ini dikenal kaku gitu, jadi sangat-sangat luas, dan itu tidak hanya sekedar buat branding culture, tapi juga untuk perekonomian dia ke depan. Dan menurut saya berhasil. Nah, kalau dikaitkan kemudian dengan Salafism, izinkan sekali lagi saya berpendapat bahwa memang Salafism ini sedang mengalami sebuah proses perubahan ya, tapi perubahan yang lebih baik. Dan saya jujur, saya dalam konteks ini, sebentar lagi saya akan coba uraikan, saya dalam konteks ini adalah seorang Salafi. Salafi yang saya percaya adalah berusaha untuk kembali kepada the older ya, yang awal-awal dulu, para salafus solih, dari sahabat, dari tabi'in ya. Nah, apa yang diajarin oleh Nabi Muhammad ya, oleh Rasul kita, bahwa Islam yang sejati itu pada awalnya adalah mengajarkan adab. Jadi ketika kita berbicara bahwa saya memegang Quran dan hadis, itu adalah untuk konteks ibadah saya kepada Tuhan, pada Allah. Tapi ketika saya bermuamalah, maka saya harus mengedepankan adab. Nah, itulah yang menurut saya sekarang ini transformasi yang luar biasa di Arab Saudi, bahwa mereka tetap merupakan sebuah negara Islam yang memegang Al-Quran dan hadis, dan para ulamanya juga masih tetap konsisten. Tapi ketika mereka berhubungan dengan negara-negara lain, terutama dengan negara barat, mereka kemudian mulai menunjukkan sebuah hal yang menurut saya sangat positif ya. Ini kita bisa berbeda pendapat, tapi sangat positif, yaitu tadi masalah adab, yang membuat kemudian bahkan buat teman-teman yang senang dengan kajian Timur Tengah itu, mohon maaf, itu ada video yang Pak Jil ya, tolong dikeluarin aja tadi.
Sudah Pak, sudah saya keluarkan Pak.
Astagfirullah. Mohon maaf, dengan Iran ya, teman-teman bisa lihat bahwa kemudian terjadi sebuah hubungan, misalnya dari hubungan internasional ini, yang layak untuk kita ikuti ke depan gitu. Bahwa Arab Saudi dengan Iran ini kemudian sudah mulai ada pembicaraan yang memoderasi gitu ya. Jadi point of view saya dalam konteks Salafism yang modern sekarang ini adalah ketika kita berbicara kepada hubungan dengan Tuhan, dengan Allah, maka Quran dan hadis itu tetap harus dipegang. Tapi ketika kita bermuamalah, nah di titik ini nih, menurut saya Salafism tetap memegang satu prinsip dasarnya adalah jangan pernah sekali-sekali melakukan bot ya, atau pemberontakan terhadap pemerintahan yang sah. Ini dalam konteks politik, menurut saya ini tetap eksis nih. Orang-orang Salafi baik yang yang pure maupun yang modern sekarang tetap dia berpegang teguh pada prinsip ini. Tapi ketika bermuamalah, berhubungan dengan negara lain, ditambah lagi dengan tantangan-tantangan ke depannya. Tadi ada pertanyaan tentang geopolitik. Menurut saya itu bagus sekali itu menajamkan diskusi kita malam ini ya, bagaimana Salafism ini dengan geopolitik dunia atau minimal di region Timur Tengah. Nah, di titik ini standpoint saya adalah Salafism dia memang sedang melakukan sebuah proses perubahan yang positif, tapi dengan tidak mengubah karakter utamanya, supaya dia tetap bisa menjadi sebuah ideologi yang kompatibel dengan perubahan ini. Dan ini menurut saya genuine, ini menurut saya keren, ini jenius nih. Para pemangku kepentingan yang menggunakan salafisme di Timur Tengah ini. Dan di Indonesia, saya berharap nih dalam konteks Indonesia ini kita jangan sampai terbalik gitu loh. Di Timur Tengah yang dulu kaku, sekarang dia sudah mulai mencoba tolong jangan sampai salah paham, bukan mengubah filosofi salafisme, tapi dia mencoba untuk mengembalikan ke aslinya gitu ya, bahwa berbicara Islam ini ada dalam kaitan ibadah dan ada kaitan muamalah. Ketika beribadah tidak ada tawar-menawar, Quran dan hadis itu harus tetap dipegang. Tapi ketika bermuamalah, adab yang harus dikedepankan. Sehingga kemudian yang berhubungan dengan kita, siapapun itu, dia akan merasa senang dan merasa rugi kalau tidak berhubungan dengan kita. Itu menurut saya keren tuh. Itu menurut saya salafisme yang modern itu yang harus kita kedepankan. Nah, jangan sampai yang di Timur Tengah sudah ditinggalkan, kemudian di kita ini yang dulunya kita sudah bagus, kemudian mulai mengalami sebuah proses pengkristalan yang kaku gitu. Dan saya berharap ini tidak terjadi, tapi dalam konteks teori sosial sih sangat mungkin terjadi ya, karena dinamika itu kan. Kalau berbicara teori sih mungkin aja, tapi harapan saya semoga di Timur Tengah yang sudah mulai kembali ke aslinya, menurut saya salafisme yang bisa memodifikasi itu, jangan sampai kemudian di kita ini di Indonesia jadi terbalik gitu. Saya pikir itu yang saya bisa kasih komentar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Yantori for the answer. Terima kasih banyak. Baik, mengingat ini saya tidak melihat lagi ada pertanyaan di chat box maupun yang mengajukan pertanyaan. Mohon izin menanyakan kepada Pak Ismail Suatjuaka, apakah perlu kita buka lagi sesi question and answer?
Ya, tidak ada lagi yang raise any questions, tetapi terima kasih kepada para panelis. I would like to thank to panelists that already respond to our questions. But I would like to invite everyone, Dr. Yantori and Yusuf Sayin Hocham, to have a closing statement. I would like to hand over the mic to the moderator.
Okay. Let me please allow. I have to inform that tadi bahwa Pak Profesor Dr. Sayin izin untuk pamit lebih dulu, sehingga untuk closing statement saya berikan kepada Bapak Dr. Yantori. Silakan Pak, closing statementnya.
Closing statement terkait topik ini ya, atau umum aja? Topik ini umum aja ya. Baik teman-teman, dari kacamata saya sebagai akademisi hubungan internasional, saya sangat berterima kasih bahwa topik malam ini yang dipilih oleh teman-teman semua dan juga oleh Syekh Ismail Suatjuaka itu sangat membuka wawasan ya. Karena kajian ini kajian yang bersifat yang bersifat konsep dan teoritis gitu. HI ini biasanya berhubungan yang bersifat hubungan-hubungan antar negara. Nah, berbicara tentang salafisme ini bisa dikategorikan pembicaraan sebagai pemikiran. Kajian pemikiran, kajian teoritis yang buat anak-anak kuliahan ya, S1, S2, S3 ini dihindari nih biasanya. Mereka biasanya bikin karya tulis, skripsi, tesis, disertasi itu yang mudah aja gitu. Bukan berarti salah, tapi kurang sumbangan akademiknya. Tapi kalau ada yang mencoba menulis atau membahas tentang pemikiran, ya seperti malam ini, pemikiran gitu, hal-hal yang bersifat pemikiran, memang berat. Tapi buat teman-teman yang masih kuliah atau yang sedang menuntut ilmu, kayak tadi seperti teman kita ya, yang lagi kuliah di Turki, itu kalau saya pribadi, saya sangat hormat ya, karena akan memberikan sebuah sebuah nuansa akademik yang besar gitu. Jadi sekali lagi sebagai closing remark, terima kasih banyak atas pemilihan topik malam ini, dan saya juga belajar banyak dari diskusi malam ini. Semoga summer course ini bisa terus dilanjutkan ya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Bapak Dr. Riantori. Dengan berakhirnya semua sesi acara kita pada malam hari ini, saya sebagai moderator mengucapkan terima kasih atas partisipasinya kepada Bapak Ibu partisipan, kepada para pemateri, dan kepada para diskusen yang telah meluangkan waktunya untuk ikut serta dalam acara malam ini. Selanjutnya saya kembalikan kepada Bapak Ismail Swardiwaka untuk menutup acara ini secara resmi. Terima kasih Pak, silahkan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih moderator, Saudara Dr. Alamsyah yang telah menyiapkan, memandu, dan melaksanakan acara kita pada malam hari ini. Kita mendengarkan paparan panelis 3 orang dari Prof. Yusuf di kita Sabtu semua dari Pakistan, lalu kemudian berikutnya hari Ahad dari Malaysia. Insya Allah summer school kita akan terus berlangsung sampai 16 sesi, dan mohon dukungan, partisipasi, dan kehadiran kita semua. Hanya saja ada gangguan tadi, dan insya Allah akan kita perbaiki. Host dan tim Zoom akan membagikan link yang baru, dan mohon berkenan hanya membagikan kepada orang-orang atau grup yang ada di lingkungan internal kita masing-masing yang kita tidak kenal, dihindari untuk dilakukan. Ya, artinya bahwa kita tentu berharap audiens lebih banyak, namun kemudian kita share, kita bagikan link kepada orang-orang ataupun grup yang kita kenal. Terima kasih sekali lagi kepada kita semua, Dr. Riantori, Direktur Eksekutif ISMES, yang juga Wakil Rektor Universitas Profesor Dr. Mustopo Beragama. Terima kasih. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat melanjutkan aktivitas. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan.
Terima kasih banyak. Terima kasih.
Izin pamit ya, Ben.
Izin pamit ya.